Rain drummed against the forest canopy as Maria's flashlight beam sliced through the darkness. Her breath came in ragged gasps, mud splashing beneath her feet as she ran deeper into the woods. Branches whipped at her face, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't. Then she heard it, a faint, rhythmic thumping sound coming from beneath the earth. Maria dropped to her knees, pressing her ear against the cold, wet ground. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the sound came again. Thump, thump, thump. Someone was down there. Someone was buried alive. She clawed at the mud with her bare hands, dirt jamming beneath her fingernails as tears streamed down her face. "Hold on," she whispered into the rain. "Please, just hold on." 3 days earlier, the Hartman mansion had been filled with sunshine and laughter. Maria moved quietly through the grand foyer, dusting the antique furniture with practiced efficiency. She'd worked for billionaire James Hartman for 5 years now, and in that time, she'd learned to be invisible when necessary and attentive when needed. "Maria! Maria, look what Dad gave me!" 7-year-old Lucas came bounding down the marble staircase, his face lit up with pure joy. He clutched a small vintage toy car, a pristine red Ferrari that probably cost more than Maria's monthly salary. But what made Lucas special wasn't his access to expensive toys. It was his genuine warmth, the way he treated Maria like family rather than staff. "It's beautiful, mi amor," Maria said, crouching down to examine the car properly. Lucas wrapped his arms around her neck, and she felt that familiar surge of protective love. Lucas's mother had died when he was 3, and while Maria could never replace her, she'd become the closest thing to a maternal figure in his life. "One day when I grow up, I'm going to give you a real car just like this," Lucas declared with absolute certainty. Maria laughed, ruffling his dark hair. "You're too sweet. Now go wash your hands. Breakfast is almost ready." As Lucas scampered toward the dining room, Maria caught sight of Vanessa standing at the top of the staircase. James Hartman's fiancée was stunning. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes that hugged her model-thin figure, and a smile that could light up any room. But that smile never quite reached her eyes, at least not when she looked at Lucas. "Good morning, Vanessa," Maria said politely. Vanessa descended the stairs with calculated grace, her heels clicking against the marble. "Morning," she replied coolly, her gaze following Lucas's retreating form. "James spoils that boy terribly." There was something sharp in her tone, something that made Maria's shoulders tense, but before she could respond, James emerged from his study, his phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what the board thinks," James said into the phone, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd built his empire from nothing. "The decision is final." He ended the call and smiled at Vanessa, pulling her in for a quick kiss. "Morning, darling. Sleep well." "Perfectly," Vanessa purred, though her eyes drifted towards the dining room where Lucas's laughter echoed. "Are we still hosting the charity dinner tomorrow?" "Absolutely. I've invited several key investors. It'll be good for them to see the estate." James glanced at Maria. "Maria, can you coordinate with the catering staff? I want everything perfect." "Of course, Mr. Hartman." James walked toward the dining room, calling out, "Lucas, come here, son. I want to talk to you about something." Maria returned to her duties, but she couldn't shake the image of Vanessa's expression, that flash of something dark when James called for Lucas. She'd seen that look before, brief glimpses of resentment that Vanessa quickly masked with her perfect smile. Later that afternoon, Maria was folding laundry in the guest wing when she overheard voices drifting from James's office. The door was slightly ajar, and she recognized both James and Vanessa's voices. "Everything I have built, everything I own, it all goes to Lucas," James was saying. "My lawyers finalized the trust yesterday. When he turns 18, he'll have full control of the company and the estate." There was a pause. Then Vanessa's voice, tight and controlled. "What about us, James? What about our future together? You'll be taken care of course, but Lucas is my son, my heir. Surely you understand that." Maria quietly moved away from the door, but not before she heard Vanessa's response. "Yes, darling, I understand perfectly." The words sent a chill down Maria's spine, though she couldn't explain why. She tried to push the unease aside, telling herself she was being paranoid. Vanessa was going to marry James. She'd be Lucas's stepmother. She had no reason to resent the boy. But that evening, when Maria brought Lucas his dinner, she noticed him staring out his bedroom window with unusual seriousness. "What's wrong, Carino?" she asked, setting the tray on his desk. "Vanessa looked at me funny today," Lucas said quietly, "like she was mad at me. But I didn't do anything wrong." Maria sat beside him, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes adults have complicated feelings. I'm sure she wasn't really mad at you." "Do you think she likes me?" The question broke Maria's heart. "I think she's still getting used to being part of this family. Give her time." But even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her. The next day, the mansion bustled with activity as staff prepared for the charity dinner. Flowers were arranged, tables set with fine china, and the kitchen hummed with the preparation of elaborate dishes. Maria coordinated everything, ensuring each detail met James's exacting standards. Vanessa floated through the preparations like a queen surveying her domain, offering critiques but little actual help. She looked stunning in an emerald green dress that probably cost more than Maria earned in a year. James was busy in his study, taking calls and reviewing last-minute details for his presentation. Around 4 in the afternoon, Maria went to check on Lucas. His bedroom was empty. His toy cars were scattered across the floor, but there was no sign of the boy himself. Maria checked his usual spots, the library, the game room, the kitchen where he liked to sneak cookies. Nothing. "Has anyone seen Lucas?" she called out to the passing staff members. They all shook their heads. A knot of worry formed in Maria's stomach. She quickened her pace, checking every room on the ground floor. When she reached the conservatory, she found James pacing with his phone. "Lucas," he called out, "this isn't funny, son. We have guests arriving in 2 hours." "Mr. Hartman, when did you last see him?" Maria asked, trying to keep the panic from her voice. "About an hour ago. He said he was going to play in his room." James's face had gone pale. "Help me look. Check everywhere." Maria's search became frantic. She enlisted other staff members, and soon the entire household was calling Lucas's name. The boy was nowhere to be found. Maria burst into the kitchen where Vanessa was sampling hors d'oeuvres. "Vanessa, have you seen Lucas?" Vanessa looked up, her expression unreadable. "Not since this morning. Why?" "He's missing. We can't find him anywhere." "I'm sure he's just hiding somewhere," Vanessa said casually, reaching for another canapé. "You know how children are." Something in her tone made Maria's blood run cold. Vanessa's lack of concern, her casual dismissal, it felt wrong. Maria's gaze dropped to Vanessa's feet, and she noticed something that made her freeze. Fresh mud caked the edges of Vanessa's designer heels. "Where have you been?" Maria asked slowly. Vanessa followed her gaze and quickly stepped back. "I took a walk in the garden earlier. Is that a crime?" "It's been raining. The garden paths are paved. That's not garden mud." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing me of something?" Before Maria could respond, James rushed in. "I'm calling the police. Lucas has never disappeared like this. Something's wrong." Vanessa placed a hand on his arm. "James, darling, let's not overreact. You know how Lucas loves hide and seek. He's probably in the attic or the basement, trying to surprise us." "We've checked everywhere," James snapped, pulling away. "My son is missing, Vanessa. This isn't a game." As James left to make the call, Maria studied Vanessa. The woman's face remained perfectly composed, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of calculation, of barely concealed satisfaction. Maria thought about the conversation she'd overheard, about the trust fund, about everything Lucas would inherit. She thought about the mud on Vanessa's shoes. Without a word, Maria hurried towards the coat room near the back entrance. Vanessa's expensive wool coat hung on its usual hook. but something about it caught Maria's attention. She ran her hands through the pockets and felt something small and metal. Her heart stopped as she pulled out Lucas's favorite toy car, the vintage Ferrari James had given him just yesterday. "What are you doing with my coat?" Maria spun around. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her expression sharp as a blade. "Why do you have Lucas's car?" Maria demanded, holding it up. "He gave it to me earlier," Vanessa said smoothly, "said he wanted me to keep it safe." "Lucas would never give this away. His father just gave it to him." "Are you calling me a liar?" Vanessa took a step forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Be very careful, Maria. I'm about to become mistress of this house. I could make your life very difficult." Maria stared at her, and, in that moment, she saw the truth in Vanessa's cold eyes. This woman had done something to Lucas. She knew exactly where he was. "Where is he?" Maria's voice shook with fury. "What did you do to that little boy?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." Vanessa turned to leave, but Maria grabbed her arm. "Those shoes, that mud. You were in the forest, weren't you?" Vanessa jerked her arm free. "You're delusional. I'm going to tell James about this harassment." But Maria was already moving. She grabbed a flashlight from the utility closet and ran toward the back door. Behind her, she heard Vanessa calling out, but she didn't stop. The forest behind the estate stretched for acres, dense with old-growth trees and undergrowth. If Vanessa had taken Lucas out there, Maria's mind raced with horrifying possibilities as she plunged into the woods. The rain had started again, a light drizzle that made the forest floor slippery. She followed what looked like a recently used path, broken branches and disturbed leaves marking someone's passage. "Lucas!" she called out, her voice nearly lost in the sound of rain on leaves. "Lucas! Can you hear me?" Only silence answered. Maria pushed deeper into the forest, her flashlight beam cutting through the growing darkness. 20 minutes passed. 30. She was beginning to despair when she saw it, a scrap of blue fabric snagged on a low branch. Lucas had been wearing a blue jacket today. Maria's hands trembled as she examined the fabric. The path continued ahead, less defined now but still visible. She followed it, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear anything else. Then faintly, she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the forest. Thump, thump, thump. Maria froze, straining to locate the source. It came again, rhythmic and desperate. She dropped to her knees, pressing her ear against the ground. The sound was coming from below. Someone was underground, and they were trying to signal for help. Oh God, Maria whispered, frantically clearing away leaves and loose soil. Her hands found something solid. Wood. A wooden structure buried just beneath the surface. She clawed at the earth, throwing aside handfuls of mud and debris. The thumping grew louder, more urgent. "Hold on, baby, hold on," Maria sobbed, digging with renewed frenzy. Her fingernails broke. Her hands bled. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Finally, she uncovered enough to see what it was, a large wooden box, roughly the size of a child's coffin. There was a small ventilation hole drilled in the top, and through it she could hear labored breathing. Lucas, can you hear me?" a weak voice answered. "Maria?" "Yes, baby, it's me. I'm going to get you out. Stay calm." The box was secured with a heavy padlock. Maria yanked at it uselessly, then looked around for something to break it. She found a large rock and brought it down on the lock again and again, her arms screaming with effort. On the 6th blow, the lock broke. Maria wrenched open the lid and her heart shattered. Lucas lay curled inside, pale and trembling. His lips had a blue tinge from the cold. His eyes, usually so bright with life, were glazed with fear and exhaustion. "I've got you," Maria whispered, lifting him out of the horrible box. Lucas clung to her, his small body shaking uncontrollably. She wrapped her jacket around him and pulled out her phone, dialing emergency services with shaking fingers. "This is Maria Sanchez. I need an ambulance at the Hartman Estate Forest immediately. A child has been found. He's alive but needs medical attention. She gave their location as best she could, then scooped Lucas up and began running back toward the mansion. The boy was light, too light, and she could feel him shivering against her chest. "Who did this to you?" she asked gently as they moved through the forest. "Who put you in that box?" Lucas's voice was barely a whisper. "Vanessa," she said. "She said we were playing a game. She told me to get in the box and count to 100. Then she locked it. I couldn't get out. I tried, Maria. I tried so hard." Tears streamed down Maria's face as she held him closer. "I know, baby, I know. You're safe now. You're safe." When they burst out of the forest, the mansion was lit up like a beacon. Police cars filled the driveway, their lights flashing red and blue against the darkening sky. James saw them first and came running, his face a mask of anguish. "Lucas! Oh God, Lucas!" He took his son from Maria's arms, holding him so tightly Maria worried he might hurt him. My boy, what happened?" An ambulance pulled up and paramedics rushed over with a stretcher. As they worked to stabilize Lucas, Maria turned to find Detective Morrison approaching her. "Miss Sanchez, I need you to tell me everything." Maria recounted the entire story, the overheard conversation, the mud on Vanessa's shoes, the toy car in her coat pocket, the desperate search through the forest. As she spoke, she saw Vanessa being escorted out of the mansion by 2 police officers. "This is insane!" Vanessa shrieked, struggling against their grip. "She's lying! She's always been jealous of me, always hovering around James and Lucas like some pathetic—" "Miss Kane, please calm down," one officer said firmly. "Where were you this afternoon between 2 and 4 p.m.?" Detective Morrison asked. "I was here, at the house, preparing for the dinner party." "Can anyone corroborate that?" Vanessa's face flushed. "I don't need to prove anything to you. That maid is trying to frame me because she's obsessed with this family." "We'd like to examine your shoes and coat," Morrison said calmly. "Absolutely not. Not without a warrant." "That can be arranged," Morrison nodded to his officers. "Miss Kane, you're not under arrest, but we'd like you to come to the station to answer some questions." "James," Vanessa turned to him, her voice breaking with false emotion. "You can't believe this nonsense. Tell them! Tell them! I would never hurt Lucas." James stood by the ambulance, his son wrapped in thermal blankets. He looked at Vanessa with an expression Maria had never seen on his face, pure, undiluted disgust. "Get her out of my sight," he said quietly. At the hospital, Lucas drifted in and out of consciousness. The doctor said he was suffering from hypothermia and dehydration, but would make a full recovery. It was a miracle Maria had found him when she did. Another few hours and the outcome would have been very different. Maria sat by his bedside holding his small hand. James sat on the other side, his head bowed as if in prayer. Around midnight, Lucas stirred and opened his eyes. "Dad," he whispered. "I'm here, son. I'm right here." "Is Vanessa gone?" "Yes, she's gone. She can never hurt you again." Lucas turned his head to look at Maria. "You found me. I knew you would. I kept thumping on the box because I remembered you said you can hear everything when you listen carefully." Maria couldn't hold back her tears. "You were so brave, Carino. So brave." A police officer appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Hartman, Detective Morrison needs to speak with your son, if he's feeling up to it." James looked at Lucas, who nodded weakly. Morrison entered with a female officer and approached the bed gently. "Lucas, I know you've been through something terrible," Morrison said softly, "but I need you to tell me what happened. Can you do that?" Lucas took a shaky breath and began to speak. He described how Vanessa had called him outside, saying she wanted to show him something special in the forest, how she'd led him deep into the trees to where the box was already waiting, how she'd told him it was a game, like the treasure chest games they played at birthday parties. "She said if I got in and counted to 100, there would be a surprise," Lucas whispered. "But when I got in, she closed the lid. I heard the lock click. I started screaming, but she just walked away. I heard her walking away. Morrison's jaw tightened. Did she say anything else? Lucas nodded, tears rolling down his pale cheeks. She said Dad would be happier without me, that I was in the way of their perfect life together. James made a sound like he'd been physically struck. He stood abruptly and walked to the window, his shoulders shaking. Maria wanted to comfort him, but knew this was a pain no words could ease. "Thank you, Lucas," Morrison said gently. "You've been very helpful. We'll let you rest now." As the detective left, James returned to his son's bedside and took his hand. "I am so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I brought that woman into our lives. I should have seen what she was. I should have protected you." "It's not your fault, Dad." "Yes, it is, but I promise you, son, I promise you that I will spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe and loved. Nothing and no one will ever hurt you again." The next morning, Maria returned to the mansion to collect some of Lucas's favorite things to bring to the hospital. As she packed his stuffed animals and books, she overheard staff members talking in hushed voices about Vanessa's arrest. The police had found overwhelming evidence. Vanessa's fingerprints were all over the wooden box. Soil samples from her shoes matched the location where Lucas was found. Her phone records showed she'd searched online for how long can someone survive in a confined space, and inheritance laws for stepchildren in the days before the incident. Most damning of all, they'd found a diary hidden in her bedroom. In it, Vanessa had written pages of bitter entries about Lucas, about how he stood between her and the fortune she believed she deserved. The final entry, written the morning of Lucas's disappearance, read, "Today I take back control of my future." The case was airtight. Vanessa Kane would be charged with attempted murder of a child, and she would spend decades in prison. 3 weeks later, Lucas was released from the hospital. The mansion felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a dark presence had been lifted. James had cancelled all his upcoming business trips and devoted himself entirely to his son's recovery. On Lucas's first day home, James called Maria into his study. She found him sitting at his desk, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him in months. "Maria, sit down, please," he said warmly. She took a seat, nervous about what this meeting might mean. "I need to thank you," James began. "What you did, following your instincts, refusing to give up on Lucas, you saved my son's life. You risked everything to find him. Anyone would have done the same." "No," James said firmly. "Not anyone. Many people would have waited for the police, would have trusted that someone else would handle it. You didn't. You acted on pure courage and love for my son." He opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope. "This is a new contract. I'm promoting you to household manager with triple your current salary. I'm also transferring ownership of the guest cottage on the east side of the property to you. It's yours. Free and clear." Maria stared at him, speechless. "Mr. Hartman, I can't." "You can, and you will. Lucas needs you in his life, Maria. Not just as an employee, but as family. That cottage is your home now, for as long as you want it. And there's something else." He pulled out another document. "I've added a provision to Lucas's trust. You're named as a beneficiary. When he comes of age, a significant portion will be set aside for you. You'll never have to worry about financial security again." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Han, say you'll stay. Say you'll continue being the amazing presence in Lucas's life that you've always been." "Of course I'll stay. Always." That evening, Maria found Lucas in the garden, playing with his toy cars on the stone pathway. The setting sun painted everything in shades of gold, and for the first time since the nightmare began, she saw him smile. A real, genuine, joyful smile. "Maria," he called out, "come, play with me." She sat down beside him on the warm stones, and he immediately leaned against her, his small hand finding hers. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset together. "I used to have bad dreams," Lucas said quietly, "about being in the dark, in that box. But last night I dreamed about you instead. You were there, and you kept telling me I was safe." Maria wrapped her arm around his shoulders. "You are safe, mi amor, and you always will be. Do you think Dad will ever get married again?" "Maybe someday, but only to someone who truly loves both of you." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "Good, because I don't want to share him with anyone who doesn't also love you. You're part of our family now." "I am." "Yeah, Dad said so. He said your family and family stays together." "No." As the last rays of sunlight faded and the first stars appeared, Maria held Lucas close and thought about how strange life could be. She'd come to this mansion 5 years ago simply looking for a job, never imagining she'd find a family, never imagining she'd risk everything to save a child's life. But she would do it again in a heartbeat. This boy with his kind heart and bright spirit had become her world. And now, finally, they were both safe. The nightmare was over, and a new chapter was beginning. One built on love, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a woman who had nothing and a boy who had everything except what mattered most. "Tell me a story," Lucas said, nestling closer. "Tell me one with a happy ending." Maria smiled, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. "Once upon a time, there was a little boy who was braver than he ever knew, and a woman who loved him like her own son. And they lived happily ever after, in a beautiful home, with a father who cherished them both." "That's a good story," Lucas murmured, his eyes already growing heavy. "Is it true?" "Yes, Carino, every word." And it was. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever followed your instincts to protect someone you love? Your engagement helps us bring you more compelling content. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who refuse to look away when others need help.